Chungking Express, a film by Wong Kar-Wai from 1994. It was originally shot in the 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio in Hong Kong, but when it was released to a wider Western audience via Quentin Tarantino and Miramax or Criterion, it was 1.66 to 1. So that's probably the version you saw it in. I'm gonna start out with an apology. First, because this definitely was not the movie that I thought it was, and so most likely if you saw it you didn't particularly enjoy it the way that I wanted you to, or you really did like it. It depends, and it depends on if you like cinema as a concept and if you really are just a total movie dork, because for me, this was quite an enjoyable, almost cerebral experience, but for other people I can understand why this was absolutely not at all enjoyable, and I hate to use this word, but it could come off as completely self-indulgent. I think that word, by the way, when used in criticism, I think that is just so overused and unnecessary. Blech. So the first thing to pick apart about this movie is probably the style, because that's definitely the first component of this film. Plot is absolutely not a priority for Wong Kar-Wai here. And you can tell because of the obvious inspiration from French New Wave directors. Speaking of which, I feel kind of naked. So, I tried and I tried. I looked absolutely everywhere. I think I only found one photograph of Wong Kar-Wai where he's not wearing a pair of sunglasses. And the same pair, too. Very loyal fella, I suppose. If you read any review or anything about the style or the reception of this film, you'll see that everybody compared this movie to Jean-Luc Godard, particularly if you look at his early work in the 60s or his latest work in the 60s. It's really weird. The camera angles, you'll notice, are bizarre and fractured and don't really pay much mind to the characters in the scene. I'm thinking mostly of the cop in the first half of the movie. He's on a phone call and the camera seems to not really care about the scene. His phone call is obviously underlying that entire scene, but really the camera's just wandering and looking around at all of the scenery. And I think that is the biggest clue that this is a movie made by someone who genuinely just loves movies. The plot itself is just trope after trope. A lot of the time they're just completely subverted, but still, it's trope after trope after trope. There are two halves of this movie. I should get that out of the way. There are two halves. If any of you saw it, you were probably just as freaked out as I was, and hopefully by the end you were also as excited as I was, because it starts out with this lovesick, affection-starved cop who doesn't really get much action as a cop or as a lover. So he's just wandering the city aimlessly. He's in love with his girlfriend, but his girlfriend isn't returning any of his calls, and it seems like they're long since broken up, but he just hasn't really gotten over it. So he keeps buying cans of pineapples that he gives to her, and they all have the same expiration date, which is May 1st, which is his birthday. April ends, she still doesn't call him. He eats all the pineapple, throws up, and then goes to a bar to drink. And there, he meets another character from the first half of the film. She's a woman wearing a hideously tacky blonde wig and a really quite goofy red sunglasses and a raincoat, yet somehow she's so stylish and so cool. You see, she's a drug smuggler. She gets this group of Indian people, dresses them up like a family, and has some people sew all of the drugs into their clothes, and she's trying to get them through to an airport, and then they disappear. She loses them at the airport. It turns out it was just a big sabotage. She spent all day looking for that Indian family and couldn't find them. She's losing her mind, and that's why she's in the bar. So the two cross paths, and this is obvious. The entire first half of the movie is really just sort of imitating the tropes of film noir. So there are two obvious cliches. I'm going to call them noir archetypes. Thank you. There's obviously the force of law, the private investigator. In this case, it's the lovesick cop. And then there's this femme fatale with the blonde wig and the goofy red sunglasses. And they bump into each other, and sparks really don't fly. Hi, Tilly. Tilly, you want to go? Come on. Here you go. Thank you. Bye-bye. The way the first half of the movie ends is, well, the two of them drink at the bar. She gets plastered. He takes her to his apartment. She sleeps, and he just watches TV all night. Then he goes to his job. He takes off her high heels so that her feet don't swell by the morning, which is actually quite a cute, tender little moment. And then in the morning, she wakes up. She puts her high heels back on, and then she goes out. She grabs a pistol, and then she shoots the drug lord who sabotaged her. It really is quite a cute movie. And then the cop goes to this street vendor who he always gets his food at. And there's a new girl working there. He makes a phone call, and then he walks away. And then the story, it's like a relay race. That story ends, and it passes the baton off to another story that begins right there. This new girl is also lovesick and starved of affection, and there's this other cop, a completely different cop, who starts showing up at that same food vendor place, and he always gets chef salads for his girlfriend, and then his girlfriend breaks up with him, and that girl who works in the kitchen is just pining for him. There's this absolutely beautiful moment, both emotionally touching and technically incredible. I thought it was. But anyways, she's dancing to that song, she's working in the kitchen, and she's trying to catch the cop's attention. This is another story of unrequited love. So she's trying to catch his attention. She's dancing in the back to California Dreamin', and there's that, you know, with fast food places, there's like a little window that you can see through past the cash register into the kitchen, and she's dancing back there, and the clerk is standing a little bit in front of her, and there's a telephoto shot. It's zoomed in on her, and the clerk kind of blocks her out of sight every so often, and she's dancing, trying to look nonchalant, as nonchalant as you can look when you're jamming in a kitchen out to California Dreamin' for the 50th time. They play California Dreamin' like a dozen times. It's still stuck in my head. So she's dancing in the back, not making eye contact, just kind of like, this is what I do. The clerk blocks the sight every so often, and then he moves out of the way for just not even half of a second, and then you catch a glimpse of the girl, her name is Faye, looking past the camera into the cop's eyes, and then the clerk moves back in front of her. And it was so cool. There are a lot of moments like that where you just wonder, was that meticulously choreographed, or was that just an absolute beautiful little coincidence? You'll find a lot of those in there, and honestly, if you look at the movie as a whole, that's really what it is. You just, it's so ambiguous. You can't tell whether it's meticulously well crafted or just absolutely laid back, casual, and frickin' profound in that way. That to me is why I think this film is so valuable and just so cool. I like Pulp Fiction. I love Martin Scorsese's movies, but I've never seen a movie after the 60s, or maybe even the 70s, that really genuinely captures that lightning in a bottle, that took place during the French New Wave. This sort of anything goes, but it'll all be beautiful. These happy little coincidences, or these meticulously well thought out, genius, profound, nonchalant pictures. I really have not seen a convincing French New Wave film since the French New Wave. And it's got a cute little ending. And there are so many unique, unforgettable moments that you'll walk away from it and you'll have no idea what you just saw, but you know for a fact that it's something that absolutely just changed your perception. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. That's my opinion on it. I think this was a superb film. Maybe that's just because I love film, and I like making films, and I love the materials of film, and you can tell that Wong Kar-Wai certainly loves the materials of film. I would recommend it, and as you probably saw at the beginning of this video, this is my third attempt at filming this review, and I still don't feel like I did a good job, because there's nothing I can say that will really sum up anything about this movie, or anything that I feel about this movie, because this movie is far too bizarre and over my head for me to really understand it. All I know is that I love it. I've shot this 3 times now, and every time I've done it again, I love the movie even more, because I'm thinking about it in different ways, and kind of getting an understanding of it. And normally, some of my favorite works of art, it takes me a pretty good amount of time for me to see why it's even good. So, a few days ago, I would have given this like a 3.5 out of 5, something like that. But now I'm absolutely seeing this as a 4 out of 5, if not a 4.5 out of 5. I really did love it, because it's so cute, it's so tender, and it's a movie. Oh, it's so good. And no matter what, I would absolutely recommend it. Hopefully you watched the movie before you watched this video, tisk tisk. But either way, here's your second chance to. It's hard to watch it without bootlegging it or something like that. But if you're a Criterion Charter subscriber, which you absolutely should be, support Criterion, please, then you'll be able to watch it for their last previous movie of the week. So yeah, I liked it. It wasn't the romance film that I thought it would be, because it's not happy and it's not sad. And I think that is, if you think about it, that's not something that people make art about. People make art about being in love, and people make art about falling out of love and heartbreak. But I think there's a lot of beauty in a crush, and often it comes off creepy. You'll think of Faye in this movie, who, by the way, at some points, the entire thing is a real French New Wave knockout and a real Jean-Luc Godard knockout. But something I haven't heard anyone say is how much Faye, the actress Faye Wong, whose character is named Faye, her mannerisms, the way she carries herself, and the way she's written, and the way Faye Wong performs it, is so similar to Anna Karina, and so that really warmed my heart also. But like I was saying, the idea of seeking affection rather than having it or losing it is something that isn't really shown enough. Books like Call Me By Your Name really have done a great job of portraying that, but otherwise there needs to be more of that, I think. Anyways, next week we're going to continue this theme of romance and love, and we're going to watch The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. This is not a laser disc. This is actually my dad's mom's, my grandma's record of the soundtrack, with actually has like some of the dialogue on the inside of the movie. This is Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Is all I know about it is hopefully it's a more conventional romance picture, but
Don't take my word on it, because I really thought that Chungking Express would be a little bit more conventional than it turned out being. Thanks for watching. Chungking Express.
And the sky is gray.